This man over here and I were crying, and he said, I can't believe you got something like that. You know, as men, we don't like to do that. Thank you again. There's a lot of ways you can help raise money for cancer. There's a lot of people out there that need help. I just have a question for you. Who else raises cancer some other way? Who else raises money for cancer research some other way every year other than PMC? Just raise your hand if you do. 2 people over there. Somebody over there. Somebody over there. In 2 weeks, I'm going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to hop on a motorcycle. You can see I really couldn't ride a bike very far. So I get the chance to raise money for pediatric brain cancer research, which I've done in the past. Or just riding a motorcycle around. Now, that'll be kind of fun. But keep looking for opportunities to do that. There's a lot of them out there. You might remember last year we had a gentleman come down and talk about surviving cancer. And we all have friends. And, you know, my wife was at a funeral, almost made a funeral for a woman she knows 42. Who died very suddenly of breast cancer about 3 months ago. And we spent some time with that in our family, reflecting on that. And I have a good buddy of mine who's 44, he's my age, and he's got lymphoid cancer, and it's tough. And we watched, he's kind of watching for that. He's got big scars on his neck, and it's not pretty. So it does touch you. You're real close to somebody you know. You can't get away from it. There's too much of it. It's everywhere. At any rate, I think we accomplished our goal here of letting you remember why you're down here. And we're going to put some music on when we're done. Get your spirits back up. Get back there, okay? But we have a man here, his name is Hanley. And what's really great about surviving cancer, and obviously I'm not a cancer survivor, but I've had the opportunity to be at the to meet men. They get to have rockets in their gun. There's a beautiful woman upstairs there, sitting next to him. He's engaged to her. I mean, think about that. And friends are here, and he's got a story. I sat down on a little bench, one of those car benches that somebody advertises in the Rotary today trying to get away, and started reading some pages that he wrote. And I'm wiping the tears away from my eyes, and I'm reading this, and the poor kid next to me is wondering what am I reading now. Couldn't dare ask. His badges on me about 12. Quite a story. And the only thing I can reflect on is this gentleman was down in LA, and I'm not going to tell the story for you. But my younger brother moved to Los Angeles many, many years ago. Something came up in his life that was tough. He was all by himself. I remember flying out there, spending 2 weeks with him to try to help him get through some of the stuff that he was going through. And I could really relate to what happened when you were out in LA and all of a sudden you're all alone, there's no family, and you got the worst news you've ever get in your life. So, with no further ado, I want to introduce Bill Hanley, who's got a story to share.
What a great privilege to follow Sugar Baker. We go way back now. Didn't have those neat little cameras back when you were right around me. But I'm so honored to be following you. And I'll get to that. I did scratch out a few notes that I was writing today. And thank you for reading the little bit earlier synopsis. And I'll just get into it. Who am I? And don't you sort of groan when you hear someone say that and address a crowd? It's probably your cue to use it to hit the restroom or something. Well, if you must, go ahead. I'll wait for you. Seriously. I just think of no better way to start off than to ask that statement to explain really why I'm here today. And okay, for those who must go ahead. I'll continue without you. I just don't want to go at once. At least I know my girlfriend will be here. You're not going, honey, are you? Okay, I better get started before you grabs a long hook and yanks me out of here. It is truly an honor to be before all of you today. Boy, now that is an original statement. If that doesn't cause a stampede out of here, I don't know what will. But really, it really is an honor to be here today. To be anywhere today with air. So, if you catch my drift, I'm just absolutely thrilled that I can stand before you, breathing, living, happy, thrilled, and it's all part of the great efforts that all you do here. And thank you. This isn't an anonymous thank you. This is right from my heart, thank you. Okay, well, a lot of the attention is focused on the riders, those amazing, wonderful, incredible, dedicated riders, and rightfully so. That's right. That's right. That's right. We've heard the statistics Dr. Sugar-Baker said. Their tireless efforts have really raised just a tremendous amount of money, and it's awesome. But I'm really here to thank everyone. That's you all, and everyone else that's not here, that's active in the PMC, and all the fundraising for cancers. Just you guys are the people in the background that really do pull it all together, the kind of unsung heroes. Some of you may think, what difference do I really make? As I hope you come to realize after my story unfolds here, and I complete it, one person can make a big difference. I'm living. Gee, I love that word. Living. Proof of that. Cancer. Now, this isn't just some ordinary word. It's one that evokes some type of response from virtually everyone who hears it. Maybe that response is fear, shock, tragedy, finality, or whatever. We all have some sort of word, some sort of reaction to that word. The big C. That very powerful and shocking word is the reason we are gathered here today. While some, if not all of those words I use to describe cancer are part of the many stories associated with cancer, I'd like to say a few more words. Words like hope, courage, admiration, and love. It's just to name a few. Already I've talked with quite a few of you here today, and you've shared some pretty amazing stories yourselves. And I would very much like to hear from more of you. And with all those great stories that I've heard, I'd really like to start just telling everybody about it. But right now you're going to hear my story. Why? Well, because I'm the one with the microphone, but the only way I can do it is just really tell it as it unfolds. That's why I had my notes in it. When I was asked to come here and speak, it was great to review the years. So that's what I'm going to do before you. Who am I? Well, a great deal of things. But what unites us today is that I stand before you a cancer survivor. Some of you may still think that's a stretch. Thank you. You may think that's a stretch, and it probably is more accurate to say that I've only managed to delay the full onslaught of ravages of cancer, and that, well, you never really survive it and just kind of live with it, or until you don't live it. You may think, as I did, that once you go diagnosed with cancer, that is it, and you have the big C, period. Well, I'd like to use another C word, cure. A new big C word, and the really brand new big C word for complete cure for cancer has yet to become a reality. There are so many battles being won on many of cancer's fronts. And while we're all greatly encouraged by the headlines, and as Dr. Sugar-Baker shared with us, it's exciting. And the future is, we should be optimistic to be sure. But I'd like to take the time to focus on the present, today. And that's what really counts. Who knows how many of us, whether or not we have cancer, will even be here as long as tomorrow? I hope you don't hear that as a negative. What I'm trying to say is living today is something we all need to do. It's something I've learned is being counted among the growing numbers of cancer survivors. A lesson which cancer was instrumental in teaching me. That lesson is my story. My story really begins back in 1986. That's 12 years ago. It was in March of that year that my wonderful life-changing encounter with the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute began. Life-changing is very much an understatement. My life before that was exciting to me, but it probably could be described as ordinary. After cancer treatment, you don't mind being described as ordinary. In fact, you love that word, and words like normal. My pre-cancer and normal, ordinary life went like this. I grew up as next to the youngest in a family with 5 children, 2 boys, 3 girls. Is a boy having 3 older sisters normal? Or to be pitied? My parents are nothing short of the best. I was raised in Braintree, Massachusetts. I graduated from Northeastern University in 1985 with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. It was that year of graduation that I left Massachusetts to begin my adult life in Los Angeles. Los Angeles was exciting to me because I was for the really first time on my own. I had no friends or family out there, and with a new job, it was truly a brand new slate for me. I was excited, to say the least. Not that I was excited about the not having friends part, or was planning on becoming a hermit or anything like that. I was excited about making new friends and making a new life from the ground up. I was tremendously enjoying building my new life in Los Angeles. The sky seemed to be the limit. The limit was reached a scant 6 months after my new adventure began. It was in January of 1986 when I first noticed a strange lump on my chest. First I ignored it, thinking it would pass. It would not and could not be ignored. I worked out with weights regularly and seemed to remember that's when I first noticed pain in that area. It hurt, but as with all injuries I had in my life up until then, it too would pass. After a couple of weeks, the pain not only continued but worsened. I finally hit the wall on the pain threshold, and I could see the lump growing. So I decided I had to check out. Through a process that had taken far longer than it should have, and was by and large, as a whole, compassionless, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma on February 28, 1986. Whoa. No one in my family ever had that. My mother is a cancer, like I am a Scorpio, but that other cancer just didn't seem possible. Not me, Mr. Health Nut. Well, apparently someone forgot to tell my lymphoma that it made a mistake by clicking me. It didn't make sense. But I could easily go into my horrendous experience at that particular caregiver facility. That's not what my story's about. It's more about the element that's so often missing in our healthcare institutions, and also in many avenues of our society as a whole. It's really about caring. This caregiver facility collectively left an impression as an institution devoid of compassion. However, just when I was ready to give up, I was ready to give that hope and finding someone who saw me as nothing, as something more than patient X, Y, Z. I met one man who truly cared about me as a person. Ironically, he was a doctor who had the difficult task of informing me that I had cancer. I find it quite strange that the very first time I met this man, he told me I had cancer, that my response wasn't to run away in fear. Instead, I saw a man with a tremendous amount of compassion, so much so that I was actually drawn to him. Ironic indeed. It was this man, Dr. Rosen, who was single-handedly responsible for my being treated at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. As I said earlier, one man can make a big difference. When I informed Dr. Rosen I had no family in California and I was concerned that the chemotherapy treatments he described, as they progressed, I wouldn't be able to do it alone. I really wanted to be back in Boston with my family. He informed me that he recently met with Dr. Arthur Scarron from the Dana-Farber and would make arrangements for Dr. Scarron to see me. Oh, I must stop here and point out the first of many miracles associated with my cancer journey. I was in HMO that didn't have any facilities in Boston, so you see I just been transferred from Dr. Rosen's care to over the Dana-Farber. My company, like most, only allowed you to switch coverage one time out of the year. Also, I just figured that there's no way no way, I never even paid attention to health insurance. I just kind of randomly stuck my hand in. I thought, oh, I hope it'll go to work. So now I needed health insurance. Okay, now as unbelievable as it would sound, I was in the very week out of the entire year that I could change coverage. And not only that, on top of that, I was a few days, it was like a Thursday of that week. Also, let me point out, I had to explain to my company that I had a little pre-existing condition now, a little thing called cancer. Oh, that's no problem, right? Can you understand how I felt when I was actually approved that very day over the phone? Now, someone called it luck coincidence. I don't know exactly where that all came from. So, with that amazing hurdle passed, I headed out the next day, Friday, on a plane bound for Boston. That Monday was the first time I walked through the doors of the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Right from my very few moments there, I was struck at how compassionate and caring virtually everyone seemed to be. What a sharp contrast to the experience I had in that Southern California caregiver facility. It truly is a place of hope. Competency wrapped with compassion is a great way to describe my experience at the Farber. I met with Dr. Scarron that morning. While Dr. Scarron outlined the hard road ahead for me, he was also offering words of encouragement. That meant a great deal to my family and me. He then informed me that he would be assigning a fellow to my case. That fellow was Dr. Robert Fenton. The positive impact Dr. Fenton had on me and my family cannot be expressed on paper or with mere words. Here again, I must repeat, one person can make a big difference. Dr. Fenton was there every step of the way through my 30 weeks of chemotherapy and 4 weeks of radiation treatment. But Dr. Fenton's compassion was far above the call of duty. He was always there ready to answer any question I had, very straightforward. I vividly recall before chemotherapy began, my lump was now a mass about the size of a tennis ball attached to the aorta. I remember asking Dr. Fenton what my chances of even surviving treatment were. Hanley said 50%. But it was the way he said 50%, followed up by words that gave me some real hope, that made a difference. Remarkable. The next 10 months are hard to fully describe. Not that it's hard for me to talk about, it's actually quite easy for me to talk about. The difficulty is in trying to convey the entire impact of the experience. There was a young, formerly healthy and active guy, ready to take on the world, who was now waiting for time to pass and simultaneously fearing what that passage of time might bring. Was I living with a time bomb within me? Is it really it for me? What about my family? I see it on their faces. If I die, how is that going to affect each one of their lives? That's the toughest thing about cancer. One family member may be diagnosed with it, but it affects everyone in that family very, very deeply. I had lots of time to think about the possibilities, both good and bad. That time was a great time for me to discover what really mattered in life. That's a question most 23-year-olds don't ponder too deeply. This is also a great lesson cancer taught me. We're in this world together. We pretty much have a wide open choice as how we live. We can choose to say the world is the way it is and I can't do anything about it, and just not do anything at all. Or we can choose to say, my life has purpose, no matter how long or short it is, and try to make a difference. We have choices every single day as to how we're going to act. I can't emphasize enough that every little choice we make matters. I had seen it early on in my cancer journey, with people choosing to make a difference in my life. The incredible medical staff at Dana-Farber that I was blessed with, the amazing family I have, and the friends that would just come by to visit. That's the funny thing about cancer. Some people can't even look at, much less talk to someone they used to know as healthy, who now has the big C. It pushes some people's mortality buttons, so much so that they can't face people they love. That's one of the biggest tragedies of cancer. But thank the Lord, I had friends who saw me as still me. They laughed with me and they cried with me. But just the fact that they were with me meant the world to me. No one came to visit over those 10 months, knew what to say about what I was going through. They didn't have to. They didn't have to say anything. Just being there said it all. So I encourage any of you out there who knows somebody that's going through treatment, be it family or friends, call them. Go visit them. Just don't act like they don't exist anymore. You don't have to, nor does that friend or family member expect you to have any of the answers. Just choose to make a difference in their life today. To continue on with my telling of the amazing journey that I was on, I have to report that by the end of chemotherapy and radiation treatments, my tumor had disappeared beyond detection. I remained in Boston for another year with monthly checkups at the Fargo, after which I moved back to LA in October of 1987. Now, I'd love to say my story ends there, but life rarely unfolds in nice little tidy packets. The story takes a couple of interesting turns. While living back in LA, I was followed by a physician who was a former Dana-Farber fellow. Well, that wasn't quite by chance. You see, I actually made darn sure I could find someone associated with the Farber out there before I set foot back in LA. My monthly checkups continued to be thumbs up, just as they had been since the end of treatment in November 1986. Then, April of 1988, something showed up on my lung in a chest x-ray. With that news, I flew back to Boston, back to the Farber, back to Dr. Fenton. Surgery was needed to determine what it was. Everyone feared the worst, the lymphoma had returned. Dr. Fenton was getting me mentally prepared for a bone marrow treatment now. Even though it was difficult for him to talk about, it was always very encouraging. I had lung surgery and waited for the pathology results. This was a week that seemed to have more impact on me than all the 30 weeks of chemo. I was really searching for answers now. Was chemotherapy really of no benefit at all? I tried to maintain a positive attitude, and once again, my family, friends, and medical staff were wonderful. I couldn't imagine going through this latest challenge without them. But it was still very hard, and I was trying to make sense of it all. That's pretty hard to do. Through chemo, I felt an inner peace. That inner peace didn't seem to be there now. I was really trying to maintain a stiff upper lip attitude. Well, eventually the pathology results came back. I listened so very anxiously. And Dr. Fenton came in to convey the news to me. As unbelievable as it sounded, it was not lymphoma. The results came back as non-specific, but they were certain it was not lymphoma. I believe Dr. Fenton's words at the time were, "We dodged a bullet." Note that he used the words "we" instead of "you." How's that for compassion? After celebrating here in Boston, I quickly returned to LA. It was business as usual again in LA until February of 1989. Until, you guessed it, another routine chest x-ray showed something again. Wait a minute. I got a third chance at life. Everything was supposed to be great now. This can't be happening yet again. Okay, I really know the procedure now. Back to Boston, back to the Fargo, back to Dr. Fenton. This time, Dr. Fenton was noticeably more worried. He was concerned by yet another recurrence and thought that the lymphoma was back for sure this time. He was still somehow managed to find encouraging words, though. But I do clearly remember his becoming quite excited when he told me of a new chief surgeon at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, a Dr. Sugarbaker. Amazing. He said Dr. Sugarbaker is excellent and a very nice guy. He is. Dr. Fenton went on to personally introduce me to Dr. Sugarbaker that day. Later that day, me and my mother, along with Dr. Fenton and Dr. Sugarbaker, consulted. Dr. Sugarbaker was just incredible. He was very enthusiastic and thoroughly explained the procedure he would perform on me. I felt a great deal of trust the moment I met Dr. Sugarbaker. The competency wrapped with compassion, those feelings came to mind again. After taking the time to talk with me and my mother, as if that were enough in your busy schedule, upon learning that I was from LA, you made adjustments to your schedule to expedite my surgery. Incredible. Dr. Sugarbaker performed the surgery, removing the upper lobe of my right lung. It went incredibly well. I just had to wait out the week for the results of the pathology. Didn't hear it before. But I was having unquestionably the biggest challenge of my entire cancer experience. I am incredibly indebted and admire Dr. Sugarbaker. But somehow, what I was going through at the time, that inner hope and peace that I had in chemotherapy, and I explained to you that previous surgery left me wondering what's wrong, I didn't quite have that. Now I was angry that all the treatments and the struggle with the previous surgery seemed for naught. That's when I had to go deeper. Here's where my story gets extremely personal. Perhaps many of you would prefer that I left it out. But it's really what makes sense why everything that I've been through connected for me at this point. And I hope you have come to see through my story that we all can choose to make a difference by our actions. The compassionate acts of family, friends, and medical professionals during my cancer treatment has absolutely shaped me into the man you see before you today. I hope you really believe in the cause you're supporting with your involvement with the PMC, and realize that the Dana-Farber is a phenomenal institution whose people are making a huge, collectively compassionate difference. The entire medical staff of the Farber has my utmost respect and gratitude. But in addition, my aim in coming here today was to give an honest account of what my experience with cancer has been. I feel compelled to be true to the whole experience. And I'm sorry if that makes some of you uncomfortable. Okay, getting back to my lying there in the hospital, wondering if the last 3 years of my life was a painful exercise in futility. I was recalling events over those 3 years, and doing that, regardless of my condition at the present, I realized there had to be someone out there looking out for me. Okay, yes, I'll call that someone God. But just when my logical, scientific, engineering mind seemed to acknowledge him, the rug appeared to be pulled out from under me. Some God. But I knew that peace that I had back in chemotherapy treatment was indeed real. So it was at that point I said, okay, God, I ask you to grant me that peace again, no matter what the outcome. I still believe in you. And that my life definitely has purpose. But I'd sure like the lymphoma to not be back the way everyone seems to think it is. Do you still have any more miracles to give me? So I asked God in my prayers that if the lymphoma was indeed back, though I didn't understand it, that He'd give me real, genuine peace here with Him before He takes me. But I also added that I pledged to Him that if somehow He chose not to take me, that I would really try to make a big difference in other people's lives, just as the incredible people He had placed in my life made to me. As unbelievable as it sounds, God granted you yet another miracle. It was not lymphoma. Wow! Let me tell you, this absolutely stunned everyone. Truly a miracle. My joy, and my family, friends, and medical staff's joy was immeasurable. After an extremely wonderful special celebration, I headed back to Boston. Ever since that day, I've been event-free. I've lived out in LA up until 3.5 years ago when I returned to Boston. I had yearly checkups at the Dana-Farber. Dr. Fenton has moved on from the Farber a few years ago. I'm currently seen by Dr. Arnold Friedman. He is fantastic too. I've immensely enjoyed the life I've been given back over these past several years, I am forever grateful to my family, my friends, Dana Farber, Dr. Sugarbaker, and to God for placing all these amazing people in my life. If you take one thing away from the things I've said today, I hope it's that it is realized that life does have purpose, and each one of us can make a difference in this life. I'd love to talk to any one of you about it, and any one of you about it. Please feel free to ask me. But you can go right to the source. Talk to God. He's waiting. One last footnote. You already know it by now. When I first wrote my notes up a couple days ago, and I wrote down my girlfriend at the beginning of the speech. Well, that's now not, she's no longer my girlfriend. As of last night, she is my fiancée. And I can't wait for the new life I'm going to have with her. So thank you all, each and every one of you, for making a difference. Thank you, God bless.
Thank you, Bill. We're heading on towards 7 o'clock, and the timing couldn't be better. We thought there might be time for questions and answers, and there would be if there's just a couple of quick questions if somebody had any for either Dr. Sugarbaker or Bill Hanley. Anybody dying to ask a question? No? Okay. A little bit of business before I forget. Paul, as you know, goes through a lot of work to get these tables set up and get all the chairs lined up and all that stuff. And he found out about 45 minutes ago we were going to have a meeting here. So Paul would like it if when you leave, please put your